And I went to the bedroom and I found him in the bed. And I thought I heard some noises out in the hallway.
How long into the relationship did you guys have what you would call relationship?
So this case starts where most don't, with a wife who called 911 to report an intruder and ended up serving life for murder. Julene Simco told police someone broke into her home and killed her husband Jeremy while she hid in fear. And for a moment, that story might have held. But then investigators started asking questions, and Julene started answering them. What you're about to see is a woman burying herself one sentence at a time. The forensics are damning. The interrogation footage is worse. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Jeremy Simco, a man whose life mattered long before his death made headlines. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe. We're just getting started.
Do you mind if I call you Julie? Okay. All right. My name is Rick Thomas. I'm an investigator with the Lorain County Prosecutor's Office. Prior to that, I was a police officer in North Ridgeville for 32 years, and I ran the Detective Bureau for about 12 years. Dennis Terry's a special investigator that works with the Lorain County Prosecutor's Office as well. And we're going to be doing this today. Before we get started, we have to put a few things on the record, okay?
Now we meet the men who are about to spend hours in a room with her. Rick Thomas and Dennis Terry. Both veterans of the Lorain County Prosecutor's Office. Thomas alone has over 3 decades in law enforcement and ran a detective bureau for 12 years. These aren't rookies fishing for a confession. They've seen every deflection and every rehearsed answer a suspect can offer. And they open soft. Do you mind if I call you Julie? That's not politeness. That's strategy. They're giving her room to get comfortable, room to talk. And talk she will.
Okay, on Wednesday, November 18, 2009, at approximately 6 a.m., your husband was found shot through the head in your home, in your bedroom. If you could, I'd like you to please recount for us your activities leading up to that event, beginning with the previous 24 hours, going back to Tuesday morning, November 17, 2009, and then going forward to the time you called 911, and then after that we'll discuss the following days after that event. Okay? So take your time, your own words, if you just recount for us everything that happened.
You, like 24 hours before?
Yeah, when you got up Tuesday morning. How did Tuesday morning start?
I don't remember everything.
Okay, as best you can.
During the day, we worked on the property behind us, worked in the yard, leaves, raking leaves, etc. Yard work in general.
Okay.
We were canning pumpkins the night before. I mean, I don't know specifically. I mean, those, just basically what I told you. I don't know anything specifically. Just we were working in the yard, working on the property behind us, taking stuff to the street for trash pickup. Other than that, there's nothing, really exciting, just normal day-to-day stuff. And then that evening we were canning pumpkins, watching a TV show, discussing, future plans. We went, I don't know what time we went to bed for sure, but when we went to sleep, we usually go sleep together. I believe Jeremy had taken the dogs out, hooked them up before we went up. Went to sleep at some point during the night. The dogs were barking outside, and he had woke up and, yelled out the window at the dogs. And then both went back to sleep. And at another point during the night, I, went up to the 3rd floor and went to sleep up there. And then I woke up to whatever sound that I heard obviously was a gunshot. I went back down to the 2nd floor because I thought Jeremy was shooting out the window. And I went to the bedroom and I found him in the bed. And I thought I heard some noises out in the hallway. I realized that something was wrong, that I heard some noises out in the hallway, and I picked up a gun out of the drawer and I shot towards the hallway. And then I think I went over and closed at some point. I don't know if it was right after that I went and shut and locked the door to the bedroom. And then I went in the bed to help Jeremy, and I called 911.
Okay.
And then I was on the phone with the 911 operator until the police got there.
And what happened then?
After the police got there, I remember them coming into the room. I think there were 2 or 3 of them. And I kind of remember little parts. I don't remember the whole thing.
Okay.
But I remember them being in the room. I remember them taking me out of the room. And I remember being in my bathroom at the house.
So she starts with pumpkins, canning pumpkins, yard work, raking leaves, the most aggressively normal day imaginable. And look, that's not suspicious by itself. Most days before something terrible are ordinary. But here's where I start paying attention. She rattles off activities like a grocery list, vague, non-specific. I don't remember everything. I don't know anything specifically. That phrase does a lot of heavy lifting, because when we get to the actual shooting, suddenly the details sharpen. She remembers hearing noises, grabbing the gun from a drawer, firing toward the hallway, locking the door. The mundane stuff is fog. The critical moments are crystal clear. That's a pattern worth remembering.
I remember there being like a lot of people when I came out of the bedroom. It seemed like there were a ton of people in the house. And then, I remember being in the front room of the house, of the second floor. And I remember walking out of the house, them walking me out of the house. I remember seeing bullets in a shoe. I don't know why. It stuck out. There were bullets in a shoe by the back door. And then I remember getting, I think it was a police car. I don't know they took me to the hospital. And when I was at the hospital, in the hospital room, they kind of, I don't remember really ever seeing any, staff or anything. I don't remember seeing a doctor or a nurse. I remember them at some point asking to call my mom because I realized where I was and that she worked there. And they wouldn't let me out of the room. They wouldn't let me call her. They said I couldn't leave, that I had to stay there, and that they weren't calling her right now. And I remember being questioned by the detective and them taking some articles of my clothing and doing some tests and stuff on me, asking questions. And then I remember my mom coming in.
Okay.
You want me to keep going?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I don't really remember too much after that. I remember being at my mom's house and showering because when I got out of the shower, I was wearing the wrong clothes when I came downstairs. And then I remember the detective being there, I think 2 times after that, coming to the house and questioning me. And I remember them being there. I didn't remember everybody that, I know there were family members that came to visit me, but I don't remember who all was there.
Bullets in a shoe. That's what sticks. Not the paramedics, not the doctors, not the faces of family members who came to comfort her. Bullets in a shoe by the back door. Here's the thing about traumatic memory. It does latch on to strange details. That's real. But it usually latches onto sensory fragments tied to the event itself. The smell of gunpowder, the sound of sirens. Not ammunition sitting in footwear across the house. And then she can't remember hospital staff, can't remember which relatives visited. But she remembers being told she couldn't leave. She remembers being questioned. The details that survive are the ones where she felt watched.
How would you describe your relationship with Jeremy?
It was a good relationship. He was the love of my life.
Okay. How long had you been married?
10 years.
And how long did you date before you were married?
Date, probably 6 months. I'd known him years before.
And how did you know him?
Through a friend.
Okay. You didn't go to school with him or anything like that?
No, he lived close to my parents' house, so.
Okay. All right. How often would you guys have arguments or fights?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know how
I
to,
wouldn't know.
I don't know how to answer that. Did we
Well-
argue? Yeah, everybody argues. How often? I don't know. As often as other people argue.
Okay.
I don't know how you want me to answer that. Or how I'm
I just
supposed
want you to answer it.
that.
I just want you to answer it honestly. I'm just trying to look for some level here of how often you guys would have an argument.
We got along very well.
Okay.
So we didn't argue that often.
When you did argue, did it ever become violent?
I did tell the detective that he did hit me one time.
How long
That was
ago
the
was
only
that?
time, probably when we first got married.
What was that all about?
I don't even remember, to be honest with you.
When you say he hit you, what do you mean by that?
He slapped me in the face,
Okay.
and I hit him back. And that was the end of that.
And that was the end of it. Okay.
Yeah.
And since that time, he had never struck you again?
No.
Okay. So, going back to what you said, between 11 and midnight, you go to bed, right? Okay. And did anything occur that night that was out of the ordinary from any other night?
Not that I really recall. I do remember the dogs barking, but
What
that
time were the
wasn't.
dogs barking?
I have no idea what time it was, but it's not. I mean, it wasn't that. They barked sometimes. Not anything that would alarm us. There's coyotes. There's raccoons. We have 100 acres behind us.
Okay. Well, let's go back and specifically focus in on between the hours of midnight. Let's assume that was the time you went to bed, and you said it could have been 11 to midnight, but let's assume midnight. Between the hours of midnight and the hours of 6 a.m. when the shooting was discovered, okay? What occurred specifically during that period of time?
We heard the dogs bark at some point. Jeremy got up and yelled out the window at the dogs. Mm-hmm. And then I think I remembered saying that he might have taken another pill then. It wasn't uncommon for him. I think I said I took a sleeping pill or half a sleeping pill, and I went upstairs.
That
At
was
some
after
point.
that was before you got in bed, or?
We got into bed
Okay.
to go to sleep.
Right.
At some point, the dogs woke us up barking.
Okay.
I think Jeremy was restless. He took another sleeping pill after that.
Okay.
And then at some point, he was snoring, which he did all the time. And I got up and I took, I think, a half a sleeping pill, and I went up to the third floor.
Okay,
to
when you
sleep.
say you got up to take a sleeping pill, where did you get the sleeping pill from?
The hallway closet.
On the
I
second
think.
floor or on the
Yeah.
first floor?
On the second floor.
On the second floor.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, do you recall what time it was that
No
this
idea
happened?
what time it was.
Okay. And then why did you go to the third floor?
So that I could sleep.
Okay. Is there a bed up there?
There's a couch up there.
A couch. And were you sleeping on the couch? Okay. And when you went upstairs to sleep on that couch, how were you attired?
Same way I was when I went to bed.
You didn't take a robe with you or anything like that?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's fine. Do you know what time it was when you got to the third floor?
Idea what time it was.
Okay. And did you fall asleep while you're up there?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the next thing you remember after falling asleep on the third floor?
I remember hearing a noise that woke me up.
How can you best describe that noise to me?
It was a noise. I don't really recall what it was. I mean, when something wakes you up, how do you describe it? I don't know. It's something loud that woke me up.
Okay. Were you sleeping soundly? Was it a fitful sleep? Or
I have no idea how I was sleeping.
Okay.
I was sleeping with a pillow over my head, which I did quite often.
Okay.
10 years of marriage and one slap. That's the entire history of violence she offers. One incident from a decade ago that ended with mutual contact and never happened again. Now look, I'm not saying that's impossible. Some couples do have a single explosive moment early on, and then nothing. But when you're building a case around an intruder theory and your husband ends up dead from a gunshot wound, the investigators are going to need more than "we got along very well." What's interesting here is how she frames the question itself as unreasonable. How am I supposed to answer that? As if being asked about arguments in a marriage is some kind of trick.
And you heard the noise.
Yes.
And what was your first reaction when you heard the noise?
Well, it woke me up. So my first reaction was, what was the noise?
Okay.
But
And what-
obviously,
what
there was a
immedi-
noise that woke me up.
Okay, and what immediately did you do after that?
I imagine I probably sat there a few minutes.
Okay.
And then I went down to the second floor.
Okay. Would you say it was a couple of minutes, several minutes?
Time frame, I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure I sat there a few minutes.
Okay. So a period of time elapsed from the time you heard the noise and you went downstairs.
Yeah.
What caused you to go downstairs?
I assumed Jeremy was awake shooting out the window.
Okay. And
So
what
if
made,
he was awake, then I was going to go downstairs because
Okay.
he was awake and I was awake.
and was that a practice that you guys engaged in frequently?
What's that?
Shooting out the window?
Yes.
Okay. And what
Quite
typically would you
often.
shoot at?
Coyotes, raccoons, groundhogs.
Okay. And that late at night, you weren't concerned about it. I'm assuming this is something you had done previously, correct?
Many times.
Okay. And do you have any idea what time of the morning it was when you heard that noise?
No.
Okay. But it was, please don't let me put words in your mouth. But as I understand what you're relating to me now, it would have been during the hours of darkness when most people are sleeping, correct?
Yeah. Early
Okay.
morning. It's
And wouldn't that be something that would alert neighbors or concern neighbors or annoy neighbors if you were shooting out the window at that
We
time?
lived in a rural area.
Okay, but
was
didn't you have a
uncommon.
neighbor right across the street?
Yeah.
And,
I mean, that would have been towards the back of the house. So
and within about 100 yards on either side of the house, correct?
She's not going to speculate
I-
as to what a neighbor could hear or not hear, so I don't think that's a fair question.
Shooting coyotes out the window at 3 in the morning. Many times. That's the explanation she's offering for why a gunshot in the middle of the night didn't alarm her? Here's the thing. Rural Ohio isn't the Wild West. Neighbors 100 yards away absolutely hear gunfire. And the lawyer jumping in to block the neighbor question? That tells you everything. Because if this nighttime shooting practice was real and routine and verifiable, you let her answer. You don't shield that. You celebrate it. The objection is the confession.
So if you would you indicate for me by circling with the pen what window you typically shot out of?
I don't really think this is north, but that's okay.
This is your bedroom here. And this is the hallway leading to the
So then it would
bedroom.
have been, what do you want me to do here?
I
Where do
want you to
think-
circle
I'm
the
sorry,
window.
but she said something about, you think north is
Well,
incorrect?
the lake is over here. So this would
She
be
thinks
north,
the
this would be
orientation on
south.
the chart is
This
off.
would be
So-
east, this would be west.
Is your house
Face the lake.
faced?
So it's, I mean, yeah, maybe like that, but anyways, to me that's
Okay.
north. This window. Circle it, you said?
Yeah, if you'd circle the window. And that, okay. All right. There's no window there.
Oh,
See that
sorry, that's a,
that's the window.
Dresser.
Okay.
you want me to X this
All
out?
right. Okay. So
There's
that
a
would be
window
the
here, a window here.
That's a window right
Okay,
there.
so it's
Okay.
this window.
So it'd be that window. Okay.
This window.
All right.
Watch her hands on that diagram. She's correcting the orientation of her own house like it matters. North, south, east, west, she's got opinions. But the window? The window she supposedly fired out of multiple times to protect livestock from coyotes? She circles the wrong spot, points to a dresser, has to be corrected twice. You don't forget where you aim a rifle in your own bedroom, unless you never aimed one there at all. The geography of an alibi should be automatic. Hers required a tutorial.
You walked into the bedroom. What's the next thing you do?
I went over to the side as he was facing this way.
Okay. You went over to what would you've referred to as your side of the bed. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we're clear here. I don't want any misunderstanding. Okay. And what happened next?
I went to wake him up.
Okay. And how did you try to wake him up?
I don't really remember. I mean, to be honest, I just, went to touch him to wake him up.
Do you remember where you touched him at?
I don't have any idea.
Did you say anything to him?
I mean, I'm sure I was, saying something. I don't know what I said.
Okay.
If I said anything.
All right. So you try to wake him up, and what happens next?
I felt that there was like the blood or whatever in the bed.
What did you think that was?
I had no idea.
Okay.
But at that point, I felt, like something obviously wasn't right.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. Okay. What specifically made you think something wasn't right? What exactly did you feel? Describe what you felt. Because it's still dark at this time, right?
Yeah, it's dark.
Okay, it's dark.
I mean, it's somewhat dark. It wasn't completely dark in the bedroom.
Okay. Were there any lights on in the bedroom?
There was I think the only light was from a clock light.
Okay. All right. So what exactly, as best you can recall, when you tried to wake him up, did you experience that made you feel something was wrong?
He wasn't responding to me.
Okay.
And then I felt something wet and then almost immediately heard noise
Okay.
out in the hallway that somewhere. I don't know where it was coming from. I heard noise. And
Okay. All right. You heard a noise. What kind of noise did you hear?
I have no idea what it was, whether it was something falling or somebody moving. There was a definite sound of something.
And what area?
Outside of the bedroom.
Outside of the bedroom. Can you tell? Same floor, up above you?
I assumed it was out in the hallway. That's what it sounded like to me.
Okay.
I mean, it was close.
Okay. And what did you do then?
I grabbed the gun
Where did you grab the gun from?
out of my dresser
Okay. And where was it at in your dresser?
in the drawer.
Okay. Is that normally where that gun is at?
Either or. I mean, sometimes it was in his dresser, sometimes it was in mine. We'd been cleaning and
Okay.
stuff was moved around, so
Okay. When were you cleaning?
the days before.
Okay.
We were planning on having somebody come to, what do you call that? Appraise the house.
Okay. You've got the safety off. What is your next action?
I shot towards the doorway.
Okay.
Or, like out of the doorway.
And what were you shooting at?
I was just shooting because I heard noise out there.
Mm-hmm.
So my reaction was just to shoot. I don't know who's out there. There's nobody else in the house. It's Jeremy and I. There should be nobody else in that house.
Okay. All right. And why did you shoot 2 shots?
I don't remember how many shots that I shot.
Okay.
You're saying I shot 2?
All right. How many do you think you shot?
I have no idea. I know I shot the gun.
Okay.
I don't remember
you shot
how
it
many
more than
times.
once, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Well,
I remember shooting the gun. How many times? I don't remember.
okay. What were you aiming at when you shot?
I was just aiming where I heard the noise.
Okay.
Out towards the hallway.
And what kind of rapid succession were you shooting the gun? Did you shoot, wait a second, shoot again, wait a second? I mean, how did you do that?
I imagine I probably just shot. I don't really remember what.
Okay.
I mean, it all happened really quickly. I don't remember how quickly I shot. I imagine
Okay.
if you say I shot 2 times, then I imagine I shot 2 times pretty quickly.
Okay.
I
So-
don't think I shot and waited to see what was going to happen.
All right. What hand did you hold the gun with?
I'm right-handed.
You're right-handed? Okay. Did you take a...
I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember how many times I shot. I don't remember where I touched him. I don't remember what I said. But here's what's interesting about trauma and memory. Real trauma doesn't erase the sequence. It burns it in. Ask any first responder. Ask any combat veteran. The moments before and during a life-threatening event become involuntary playback. She remembers hearing a noise. She remembers grabbing the gun, but she can't recall whether she spoke to her dying husband. That's not shock. That's selection.
One-handed stance or two-handed stance?
I really don't remember.
You don't remember how you shot the gun?
No, I don't really remember. I mean, I remember having the gun in my hand. I probably held it with 2 hands. That's how I
Okay.
would normally hold a gun.
Okay. You've done shooting before, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, what do you do from that point? What's the next thing you did?
I think what I did next was I ran over and shut the bedroom door and locked it.
Okay. And then what did you do?
And then I went back to the bed.
Okay. And then what did you do?
I think I rolled Jeremy over. I noticed there was a lot of blood. I think I put a towel, like, on his head where it was bleeding.
Okay.
I looked for a phone to call, and the phone was usually, I think the charger was probably over here somewhere, and I didn't see the phones, and his phone was on his dresser, so I used that phone
Okay.
to call the operator.
Okay. And at any time prior to this, had you turned on an interior light?
At some point when I was in the bed, I turned on the light.
Where's the light switch at there?
It was like directly over towards the foot of the bed. There was, the light switch is on the wall, but we just used the pull thing.
Okay. So you just reached up while you were on the bed and turned on the light?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that how you turn the light off at night? You just reach up and use the pull chain? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So from the time you called 911, how much time elapsed before you got on the bed? Or did you get on the bed first and then come back and call 911? Okay, you took the phone with you.
No.
Okay.
I came and got onto the bed and went to Jeremy, and I have no idea how much time elapsed. And I looked for the phone at some point, which I believe the charger was over here and the
Okay.
phone wasn't there. But his phone was on the dresser. So I grabbed his cell phone and called while I was in the bed with him.
All right, just so I have this clear in my head. You have shot the gun 2 or more times, okay? You don't know what you've done with the gun, or you think you took it to the bed with you?
I'm sure I took it to the bed. I don't know if
Okay.
I sat it down or took it in the bed, but I had it with me.
Okay, so let's go right to the point. You've fired the shots, you're on the bed. What's the next thing you do?
I was checking on Jeremy in the bed.
Okay, in the dark or in the light?
At some point, I turned the light on.
Okay.
I probably turned it on fairly quickly to see what was going on.
And what did you determine after you turned on? What did you see when you turned on the light?
I saw him laying there, and there was blood everywhere.
So now you're calling the 911 operator, correct? Okay. What transpired during that period of time? What did you do?
I remember pulling him off the bed, as she instructed me to do, to get him on
And how
the
did
floor.
you do that?
I don't know how I grabbed him. I grabbed him and pulled him off the bed over to here.
Okay. All right. Did you set the phone down when you were doing that? Were you holding the phone? Did you have it? What were you doing at that
I don't
time?
remember where the phone was.
Okay.
I remember being on the phone. I don't know if I set it down or if I was holding it and
Okay.
doing it.
All right. So you set him on the floor, correct?
Yeah.
How much time elapsed from the time you called 911 and you decided to move him onto the floor?
I did it when she told me to.
Okay. All right. And what did you do then?
I was holding a towel behind his head,
Okay.
and I did do CPR. She was instructing me on the phone.
Again, I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but did it appear to you at that time that he was deceased?
I thought I could see his neck moving. But, I don't know if I was thinking that or not.
Okay. Was there a point prior to the arrival of the police that you believed he was deceased?
I wasn't sure.
Well, I understand you weren't sure. Was there a point that you thought he's gone?
I don't really know. What I was thinking at that point.
Okay. All right. So you're doing 911 in conjunction with what the operator's telling you. What happens next?
It was a while before the police got there. Mm-hmm. I remember hearing, I don't really recall everything, but I remember hearing them asking to come into the bedroom. Mm-hmm. They were outside the door and the door was locked.
Okay. And what point did you open at? Before they got there or while they were
No,
coming
I
up the
opened it
steps,
after
or?
they must have been at the door because I heard them there.
And what's the mechanism for locking that door?
I think it was a little.
She probably held it with 2 hands. That's how she would normally hold a gun. She's done shooting before. But she can't tell them if she set the weapon down or took it to bed with her. Here's the thing about muscle memory. Julene wasn't a novice. She had firearms experience. She knew her way around a weapon. And yet, when it comes to the most critical 15 seconds of her life, she's guessing at her own grip? The body doesn't forget a shooting stance. The mind might spin a story, but the hands know what they did.
Shortly after this event happened, I believe by the police report, it says that I think they secured the scene and handed the keys off, I think 6 p.m. on Friday. And I don't know, did you get those keys, Jack?
I don't really remember who got the keys.
Okay.
I think we might, my mom
Okay.
and I might have picked them up right before we met you there.
Probably.
Okay.
I think you picked them up at the Vermilion Police Department.
All right. So at 6 p.m. Friday, the police department have essentially concluded their crime scene processing of the house. So when is the next time that you're at the house?
Whatever day we were there together was the,
Okay.
I don't remember if that was the first time we were there. I don't really remember. I don't remember.
You don't remember the first day you were there? Okay. When was the first time you went to the house and you thought that something was amiss following the shooting?
She's not going to answer any questions regarding anything other than this investigation, because we haven't been provided with information regarding those other investigations, and so I'm not going to have her answer questions about things that we haven't been provided information on.
Okay, and Jack, I will tell you that everything I'm asking here was in the reports that we gave you. I mean, you know, I understand and respect what you're saying, but I'm not.
It really doesn't have anything to do with Jeremy Simco and his death, and so she's not going to answer any questions about that. That was not the ground rules today. I said we'd have her come in here and answer questions regarding Jeremy's death. She's doing that.
Okay. You understand from our perspective that's tied into the homicide. So we're looking at all angles. We're not taking anything off the table. I just want you to understand where we're coming from.
Have you investigated that at all?
Sure.
Have the police?
Sure, yes. That's been looked into. Yes. In a number of different areas. Okay. All right. So there's no questions regarding the break-ins that you're going to answer, right?
No.
Okay.
And now the lawyer steps in. The moment investigators ask about subsequent break-ins at the house, Julene's attorney shuts the whole thing down. Not relevant to Jeremy's death. Except, here's what the jury would later hear. Those break-ins were staged. Items reported stolen were later found in Julene's possession. The prosecution argued she manufactured a burglary pattern to support her intruder story after the fact. When your client won't discuss the very crime scenes that corroborate her defense, that's not protecting her rights. That's protecting the narrative from collapse.
We have some issues with regard to a number of inconsistencies that have come up during the period of this investigation. And I understand that there's trauma involved here, that it's a difficult time, but we're left with a feeling that we don't have the complete story. And if we did, we probably would have been beyond this point today. Okay? Can you understand what I'm saying? All right. So before we get into the inconsistencies, is there anything about this incident that you haven't told us that you would like to tell us?
No.
Okay. Anything you... No. Okay. Anything you think we've missed?
As in?
Any questions that you think I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
She's not going to speculate as to what you should have asked her.
Okay.
That's your job.
Okay.
She's just going to answer whatever questions you ask her that are proper questions, she will answer.
I have a couple about the gun, if you want.
Sure. Yeah.
Julene, when you fired the gun in the bedroom, did you use one or two hands?
I don't remember what I used.
Okay. Normally, when you shoot, you.
I didn't shoot that gun very often. I probably used two hands.
Okay. Just based on what you're telling us, you take the gun with you to the bed, and prior to taking your gun with you, when you checked Jeremy, you also felt something wet. I'm assuming that was blood, okay? After you shoot, you go to the bed and you take the gun with you, and as you indicated, there was blood everywhere. Did you wipe that gun off in any way? And the reason I ask you that is because there wasn't any blood on that weapon that you fired. I'm assuming that had you had it on your hands or in the bed, there would have been some blood on there, and I didn't know if you had wiped the gun off in any way.
I don't remember wiping it.
Okay.
I don't know why I would have wiped the gun off.
Any idea on why there was no blood on the weapon? Okay. there was some time between when you heard the noise and you grabbed the gun, you went to the clock, you moved to the end of the bed, and then you shot several times, okay? At that time, and you probably had time to think about this, if there was somebody in the house, how he got out or how long it took him to get out. The revolver that was used was found on the kitchen floor, okay? The revolver had no blood on it either. The revolver was used a couple of inches away from Jeremy when it was fired. So there would have been a significant amount of blowback on that weapon. But when the gun was found, there was no blood on it. And I was there enough time that someone could have wiped that off?
I have no idea
Okay.
what someone might have done.
Okay. Normally, you had indicated that normally when Jeremy hooked the dogs up, he would lock the doors. I think in a previous statement you had indicated to the police that this was something that he normally did. So when he went out to hook up the dogs, he normally came in and he would lock all the doors. That was kind of like
he was
his
the
thing.
last one, yeah.
Yeah. There was no fingerprints of Jeremy found on the door to the kitchen, and no DNA that would have indicated that he would have touched that door.
Well, he would have touched the door. That was
Yeah.
the only door we used in the house.
I know, and I didn't know whether or not, I don't know how that would have occurred either.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
You guys are the experts.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out.
Your guess is as good as mine. You guys are the experts. That's the line. No blood on the murder weapon, despite it being fired inches from Jeremy's head. No fingerprints from a man who supposedly locked that door every single night. And her response? Shrug it off to the professionals. This isn't trauma. This is strategy. Don't speculate. Don't explain. Let the gaps stay gaps. Because if she fills them in, she has to account for a crime scene that makes no sense unless she cleaned it herself.
The gun that was used to kill Jeremy, the .357, the one that you guys used at the range for qualification, where was that normally kept?
Normally?
Yes.
I don't know about normally. I believe that gun was in our china cabinet
Okay.
at that time.
All right. Was that a usual place to keep it?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
It would be in there,
Okay.
sometimes not.
All right. Is there any reason that you can think of that a DNA swab of the curio cabinet would only have your DNA on it?
Absolutely not. Nor can I say why the back door would not have Jeremy's DNA, since that was the door that everybody used to get into the house.
Okay.
I find that to be very strange.
Okay. Let me set out how this appears. Okay. And I think you can understand why we have some questions, and we might want to get into that a little bit further. By all accounts, in interviewing Jeremy and interviewing people that knew you and Jeremy, they described you both as a security conscious couple. Okay. You had an alarm system on your house, and even though the alarm was not being monitored by an alarm company, when the bottom room doors would open, the chime would sound. You had the driveway alarm, which I understand was probably more to stop people from getting bit by the dogs so you could get out to the dogs. Is that an accurate assumption?
About the driveway alarm?
Yeah, why did you have the driveway alarm?
Because sometimes you wouldn't hear people coming in.
Okay. So would you agree with the assertion that others have made that you are a security conscious couple? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a security conscious couple in a very low crime rate area.
I would not call it low crime rate, by the way. Our property had been broken into several times. The neighbors had stuff stolen. This was not the only incident in the neighborhood.
Nationally speaking, if we look at the Vermilion Township, that area, compare it to the Uniform Crime Report that the FBI establishes, it's a very low crime, and the crime they do have tends not to be violent crime. Okay. Prior to this incident, subsequent to this incident, there has never been a homicide committed in the manner that was happened in your home, okay, in that area. Okay. So we have a security conscious couple.
Wasn't there some guy that was found like right down the road, and you say it's a low crime area? There was somebody that was found murdered in a field. So
Yes.
for being a low crime area,
Statistically, it's a low crime area. Okay.
She doesn't agree with you.
no, I
that-
don't
that's
agree
fine. That's
from,
fine.
from what
That's
I
fine.
experienced.
She wants to debate crime statistics. Her husband is dead in his bedroom, and she's pulling out anecdotes about a body found in a field somewhere. Here's what the clip doesn't tell you. Vermilion Township had one recorded homicide before Jeremy's death. One. And the manner of Jeremy's killing? Shot in his own bed with his own gun while his wife was home and the alarm never triggered, has never been replicated in that area. Not before, not since. She's not offering context. She's manufacturing noise.
You have an alarm system on your house, and I understand it's not being monitored by an
It
alarm
was not
company.
even on. We hadn't
Okay.
used that,
Okay.
to be clear.
Okay. Do you understand it was working when BCI
The chimes were working. That
Okay.
that had not been turned on for a long time.
Okay.
The actual
When you say the
security
chimes
system.
are working, what do you mean?
I mean, when you open the back door or the side door or the basement door, it would like give a chime.
Right. But it wasn't sending an alarm to any
No.
place.
The,
Just
the security system was not
Sure. Just
like
the
on.
chimes
Like
would sound.
there were motion detectors in the house; those were not on.
Okay. But the chimes on the
chimes
doors
were
would
on.
sound.
Yeah.
And it's only those 4 first floor doors, right? You didn't have any, did you have any windows hooked up?
No, there was a front door, side door, back door, and a basement door. I believe were all hooked into the chimes.
And that chime's like a 3-tone chime or something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
And your driveway alarm's kind of a long, annoying blare. Okay, all right. So I've got that right? Okay. So follow me here if you will. It's the hours of darkness. It's cool weather. We have a security conscious couple that has camera systems, an alarm, and 4, to the outward observer, would look like security dogs surrounding the house. Your husband locks up the door. You go to bed.
He locked up the door.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
One
is
of
there
us
any
locked
is
the
there any
door.
reason to believe that the door would not be locked if that's the general
No.
habit? Okay. All right. So we can agree that normally the doors were locked and there was no reason to have this door not locked, right? Okay. For whatever reason, we have a couple that has a very active life, by your own admission, previous statements. You don't engage in any conversations that night, yet there are marital accoutrements out and ready and present in the bedroom. And look, you know, there's no judgment here. We're just trying to recall facts, okay? For whatever reason, you remove yourself from the bedroom.
By the way, when I said, I just want to make this clear, it's not like we every night, okay? It wasn't like it was 3 times a week. I mean, I wasn't counting. We did often.
I'm just relying on I'm relying
Most
on
days-
statements you made on previous
Okay, I'm
interviews.
just letting you know it
Okay,
wasn't
no,
like-
no, please tell me. I mean, on
It
most
wasn't
days,
like there
what?
was anything going on that caused us to not. We just didn't.
Okay, all right. But I want to be fair to you. Is it more common for you to have relations when you go to bed at night, or is it more uncommon for you not to?
It wasn't always at night.
Okay. During that day, no time on the 17th did you engage in relations, correct? Okay. And that was typical or atypical?
It was nothing different about that than, I mean,
Okay.
we just didn't have, that's all.
All right. So we're left with the officers get there, they check the residence. There is no forced entry into the residence. None whatsoever.
How did they get in?
The back door was open. The screen door was closed, the back door was open. The 357 that was used,
Because
Did she-
I remember them saying something about asking to like knock down the door or something, or gain entry.
Who
But you're-
who did that?
I thought I remember, either I read it somewhere or I remember hearing it on the phone that they had asked if they could, like, I think the 911 operator asked me if they could come into the house, the police, and of course I said yes.
And then the 911 operator asked you if they had permission to break in the door?
I thought that's what I remember
okay.
hearing.
All right. So the officers get there, And they did, in fact, try to get in through the front door, which was secured, and they kicked it several times and could not gain entry. Okay? And they came around to the back by the kitchen, and the screen door is closed, the other door is open. They find the .357 that was used to shoot Jeremy laying on the floor. Okay? It has 6 rounds in it. 5 are live. 1 has been expended. Okay? The round that shot Jeremy. They come into the house, and as you know, they come upstairs, they find you. So we have a couple, both of them went to bed, okay? There's no forced entry into the home. No alarms went off. No driveway alarm. All the neighbors were canvassed. Nobody heard any barking dogs. And we're left with 2 people in the house. 1 is dead, 1 is not. Typically, that lends itself to making you the prime suspect. I mean, you can see where I'm coming from here, correct? Okay. Agree with me or not agree with me. I mean, can you see at least the logic of where I'm coming from?
No forced entry, no alarm, no barking dogs, no witnesses, and 2 people in a house where one of them woke up dead. Thomas lays it out like a math problem because that's exactly what it is. What he doesn't say out loud is that investigators already knew the back door was unlocked from the inside. The deadbolt required a key from outside, but not from within. Julene's intruder would have needed to know that. Or there was no intruder at all.
Okay. All right. Now we add to that some other issues. Is this your writing? Mm-hmm. Okay. You had what could at best be described, and I'm very sorry to bring it up, but I think it bears mentioning here. A very traumatic event happened to you when you were a child. Your father, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that happened for a period of years, correct? Okay. And are you familiar with this document that I have here?
Without reading the whole thing.
I'm in no rush. You can take your time and read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And whose writing is this here?
Jeremy's.
That's Jeremy's? Okay. And then I think it's the last 4 pages of this. It is your writing, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And this has been referred to by investigators as pertaining to the document agreement and or agreement. And are you familiar with this, Jack?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And would you agree with me that this is somewhat atypical behavior? It's not normal.
I don't know what other relationships people carry on, so.
Okay. All right. How long into the relationship did you guys have what you would call relationship? I mean, is this something that started right away, or?
I don't really remember, like, at what point.
I mean, is this something that is years old, or is this something that is months old?
I have no idea. When we put that together.
Okay. You don't have any idea. You don't remember if it was 5 years ago, or 7 years ago, or 2 years ago? Okay.
It wasn't something that, like, we just did.
Okay.
I think it was something that we probably had for a while.
Who introduced this into the relationship?
We both did.
Okay. Was there a nexus for this? Was there somebody that had the original idea that said, hey, why don't we do this?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
It was a mutual.
Where did you get the wording for this at?
I have no idea.
Okay. Was this ceremony, did you ever conduct this?
There was never a ceremony.
Okay.
It was just role-playing, kind of.
Okay. All right. Would you agree that this paints a pretty domineering picture of your husband?
He was a dominant guy.
Okay. And you were comfortable in that relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You didn't mind being subservient to him?
This was
to the point.
This was only role-playing.
Is only role-playing?
For your information. Just so you know, it wasn't like in a daily relationship. It was like this. This was just role playing, like in the
Okay.
bedroom. It
Well, the
wasn't
reason-
like we went out into the world with this.
There was none of that you were ever forced to do?
No.
Okay. All right. You can understand, I think, why we might ask you those questions given the circumstances we have here.
And now they bring up the document. This is something that wasn't in the original police reports. A handwritten agreement between Julene and Jeremy describing a dominant submissive arrangement in their marriage. She calls it role-playing, bedroom stuff. Nothing that followed them into the world. But here's the thing. When investigators ask about the origins of that agreement, she suddenly can't remember when it started or whose idea it was. A woman who corrected cardinal directions on a house diagram now has no idea when she signed a contract defining the power structure of her marriage. That's not trauma. That's selection.
Clearly, it was a horrific thing that was done to you by your father. It's horrific, inexcusable. Okay. I'm sure you're aware that during the course of the investigation, subsequent to the search warrants, that we seized the computer equipment, and that computer equipment was examined. When we talk about there are a number of issues that arise, such as I've laid out for you already, that would tend to make you the prime suspect. Okay. 11 hours before your husband is found dead, someone is on the computer in your house pulling up your father's obituary. Now, why would that be, and who would do that?
Well, first of all, I would like to see that, proof of that, because I don't think that ever happened.
Well, we have that proof.
Well, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see what time it was and everything else.
Oh, we can tell you exactly. It happened at 18:57 and 03 seconds on July 17, 2009. And if you go to this URL, this website, you'll pull up exactly this obituary.
You said July 17th?
No. November 7th. I may have said July. November 17th. It's 11 hours before the homicide was called in.
Can we see what was accessed before and after that?
Sure.
Let's see.
What is this? That doesn't tell us anything.
This looks as though
Julene, I can assure you there's no trick here. A computer expert was willing to testify that that is exactly what that is.
Well, first of all, did you access this?
No.
Okay.
I didn't access it, but I am curious about.
Yeah, we just want to see who was maybe on the computer. Can you tell, Michael?
well, somebody searched. Looks as though somebody searched Jeremy Simco. Looks like someone
At
searched Julene Simco.
somebody.
So it looks like there's a-
So somebody searched Jeremy Simco at the same time. Then somebody searched this article. Somebody searched Julene Nick. Now, who's Julene Nick? That's you.
That's my maiden name.
So somebody searched you.
Someone searched Julene Simco.
Somebody searched Julene Simco.
Somebody searched Judy.
No, Judy, mom.
Mm-hmm.
All right, getting back to the point. Again, you see that adds to our sense of concern about only two people in the house, 11 hours before he's found deceased.
What time would that be? What is 18? Is that
6 o'clock.
It was 3 minutes till 7 p.m., okay? That search is conducted. At 6:06 a.m., you make a call to 911. So roughly 11 hours before your husband is shot, a person that you have a relationship, role play, as you say, someone pulls up the obituary of the very person that had a father-daughter relationship with you. That makes one wonder if there is a nexus here or a tie-in with this. I mean, you can understand how we might be concerned about that.
I can understand. I'm telling you, I am not the one that.
Okay.
is using
Is there any
the
reason
computer.
Jeremy would have done that?
No idea.
Does anybody ever come in your home and use your computers? Mm-hmm. Who does that?
We've had friends use the computers before.
Okay. And did anybody come in your home and use computers at 7 o'clock that night? Okay,
I
so.
believe it was just two of us there all
Okay,
evening.
all right. So nobody could have done that search except one of you two that night, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. We get to the 911 call, okay? You call the 911 operator. She asked you at one point, did he shoot himself? And you answer no. How did you know that he did not shoot himself?
Because he wouldn't shoot himself.
How did you know?
He was my husband.
Okay.
You usually know these things.
Okay. The operator asked you, is there an intruder in the house? And you say yes. How did you know there was an intruder in the house?
The same reason I shot the gun.
You
Obviously, I didn't shoot Jeremy. I didn't kill my husband. So obviously somebody else was in the house.
Okay.
And they weren't there for any good purposes.
Okay, if we get back to the inconsistencies that we see in this case, all right, we see that you make that immediate statement to 911, he didn't shoot himself, but if you weren't present at the shooting, how would you know that? You say there's an intruder in the house, yeah, you heard a noise is all you heard. Let's go.
Her father. They went there. The obituary search happened 11 hours before Jeremy's body was found, and investigators traced it to her computer. Now here's what the clip doesn't tell you. Julene's father was convicted of sexually abusing her as a child. He died in 2007, 2 years before this murder. So someone in that house pulled up his obituary the night before her husband was shot. She says she didn't do it. Jeremy wouldn't have done it, and nobody else was there. That's not a coincidence. That's a signature.
You'll notice that you get splashback or blowback onto the weapon, okay? So someone took the time, in between the time Jeremy was shot, to clean that weapon of any blowback. Here's the really interesting thing. If we assume your theory that there is an intruder in the home, don't you think the intruder would be in a hurry to leave if he heard the shots that you fired?
I would say, yeah.
Okay. But yet this intruder who gained access to the house without setting off the door alarm, without being caught on the camera, without setting off any of the driveway alarm, without making any of the dogs bark, without being noticed by any outside sources, without forcing entry into the home, has made his way into a darkened home, has found a gun on a curio cabinet that bears only your DNA, removes a gun from a holster, goes upstairs to the room where you and Jeremy typically sleep together. That person has to lean across the bed, get within 2 inches of Jeremy's head, pull the trigger, shoot him in the back of the head, taking his life instantaneously. Then, follow me here, please. Then, yes, he was shot in the back of the head. Okay, so follow me now. And you see why we have the concerns we have. That person then has to leave there, decides not to search for you at all, isn't worried about you even though they're armed with a gun, goes downstairs, ostensibly knocks over a chair, but the chair is knocked over in such a manner that the robe is laying underneath it, so it wouldn't have made much noise. It would have been a cushioned fall. Takes the time to clean all the blowback off that gun, which is a considerable amount of time, and then doesn't drop it on the floor because we had BCI check for that. He lays the gun on the floor. There is no damage to the floor from the gun. There is no damage to the gun from the floor. So he lays the gun on the floor, then again mysteriously exits the residence through the open back kitchen door, again doesn't set off the driveway alarm, doesn't set off the dogs barking.
And you're assuming how all this happened because you don't know, nor do I know what transpired. You're assuming somebody went out the back door. You're assuming
every other door was secured. No, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. I am going where the evidence leads me. I wasn't there. You were there. I'm only going where the evidence in this case leads me.
Too,
but I'm going where the evidence leads. I mean, if there's something that we've missed in the evidence, heaven help us, we want to know that. That's why I said at the very beginning of this, it's important for us to get to the truth on this. We need your help with this. We want to try to solve this. But right now, is there any way that you don't think we would have to consider you as the prime suspect? We were hoping that you would come in here today and really enlighten us with something. But thus far, all I have is more inconsistencies.
I've been
We
truthful as
want
of
want
thus
to
far.
help you get resolution here. That's the point of this.
What other suspects have you looked at if you want to get resolution?
We're not going to discuss
Have other
other
people
suspects.
been looked at? Have you investigated this any further
We
than
have
me?
investigated. Every avenue that's come up has been investigated. Every avenue, everything here is this case. Everything. Those are all reports related to this case.
Did you also look into the break-ins that happened? Because there were a
Ma'am.
number of things with footprints and stuff that were never resolved. And a fingerprint that I remember hearing the detective talk about, whatever became of that.
Julene, everything was looked at. Everything
And you
was
came
looked
up
at.
with nothing.
What have we come up with on this case? What have we come up with the homicide? If you're a reasonable person, where does the evidence point in this case? I'm asking you, put yourself in my shoes.
She's not going to answer that question. I mean, I know what you want her to answer, but she's already told you that she came in here to assist you. If you ask her a question that might be something that she could assist you with, I think she's tried to answer every question. And I mean, I don't care if you have everything in the world laid out on top of this table. It doesn't mean that she killed her husband. She's trying to help you with this investigation, but once it starts getting accusatory, then we're going to have to stop the interview. So if you have some more questions you'd like to ask her, she's willing to answer those. If you're going to try to accuse her or have her tell you, yes, I did.
That whole scenario he just laid out, that's not hypothetical. That's a closing argument disguised as a question. An intruder who doesn't trip the alarm or the driveway sensor or wake the dogs, who finds a gun in the dark bearing only her DNA, who shoots a man from 2 inches away, then takes time to wipe the blowback off the weapon before gently laying it on the floor, and then vanishes. The investigator isn't speculating. He's showing her what 12 jurors are eventually going to hear, and she knows it. That's why her lawyer tried to shut it down.
Did this, you're not going to get the answer you want. So you got more questions? If no, then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we have a few more.
Okay.
Yeah, there was, we have statements indicating that you maintained a large bowl of Percocet and Vicodin
A what?
in your house.
A what?
Medication.
A
Percocet
bowl?
and Vicodin
No.
in a large bowl. And that statements were that you and Jeremy had offered this.
Like I said,
to the guest.
I would like to see who these statements
Okay,
are from.
so
That's crazy.
you're denying it. That's all I
No.
wanted to know, one way or another.
Right, where's this bowl at?
There are also statements indicating that you had told somebody that you and Jeremy had an argument prior to going to bed that night.
No,
I just wanted to make sure that.
we did not have an argument.
Okay. All right. There was also a statement indicating that you had indicated that you, sometime during the night, you had walked down for a glass of water.
No,
Okay.
I never said that.
And then heard a noise in the house.
No.
Okay. In your previous statements, you had indicated that you had brought a weapon from upstairs down to the bedroom. So that statement was wrong.
I didn't state that. That never happened.
Well, that was a
Maybe it was
previous statement.
misinterpreted. That didn't happen.
Okay. Also, you indicated in a previous statement that the automatic weapon that you took from the nightstand was actually in his nightstand, not yours. You indicated that's where it always was.
What are you asking me?
In a previous statement, you indicated when you went to get the automatic weapon that it was in his nightstand.
No, it was in my
Okay.
nightstand.
You indicated after that that's where it always was.
Well, a lot of times I probably said, I don't know what I said.
Yeah.
It definitely got it from my nightstand.
It's very, I guess there's a lot of ironies here, but for example, in the sleeping pills that he took, you had indicated in a previous statement that he had taken sleeping pills for a long period of time and almost got basically addicted to it. And then he laid off of it because he was addicted to it. On this particular night that,
I stated that?
yes,
To who?
to the police.
Okay.
On this particular night, it just seemed to be coincidental that on the night he got killed, he happened to start taking sleeping pills at that time.
I wouldn't say he just up and started taking them.
Well, that's what you said. I'm not putting words in your mind? I mean, that's just
I
a
don't
previous
recall
statement.
saying anything like that. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I
it's
just.
frequent for him to take pills,
Okay.
so
Okay.
it was not out of the ordinary.
If he didn't take those sleeping pills.
Or to drink. A lot of times he would drink NyQuil
Okay.
to sleep.
Okay. But on this occasion, he took sleeping pills from your statement.
Yeah.
Okay. If he hadn't taken the sleeping pills, and he would have woke up when someone was entering the room, and he would have reached for the automatic weapon, he wouldn't have found it in his nightstand because it would have moved to your nightstand.
It didn't matter which nightstand it was in. I mean,
Why
if
not?
it was in, I mean, I don't know how they want me to answer this. It
Well,
was either in mine or his, so it would have been there.
But wasn't it always kept in his nightstand?
A
Isn't
lot
that
of
what you
times it was
said?
kept in his, sometimes it was kept in mine.
Oh, because that's not a previous statement. You said it was always kept in his, but when you were cleaning, you went into the drawer and there were a lot of papers in there, so you moved the gun into your nightstand. Does that sound right? Do you remember what kind of papers that were in the drawer?
No idea.
Okay, all right. Had he woken up though, because the gun was always kept in his nightstand, he would have found no weapon had he tried to reach for it. It's just. It also seems pretty coincidental on the one night you indicated in a previous statement that you rarely slept upstairs. But on this particular night, you slept upstairs the same night he got killed. So we have this, on this particular occasion, we have him taking sleeping pills for the first time in a while. We have you going upstairs to sleep, which you rarely do. And you have his automatic weapon, which is no longer in his nightstand, but in yours. I mean, I just find that coincidental. If any one of those circumstances didn't exist, things may have been different. I don't know. I mean, do you have any explanation for any of that? No.
Count the coincidences. Sleeping pills that night. Gun moved from his nightstand to hers. She rarely slept upstairs, but did that night. Each one alone is nothing. Stack all three on the same evening, and you're not looking at bad luck anymore. You're looking at preparation. And when he asks her to explain it, she doesn't deny the facts. She just says she has no explanation. That's not confusion. That's someone who ran out of story.
So, I mean, I know you think it's a lot of coincidences, but maybe it's not a lot of coincidences.
Well, I'm just going by her previous statement, Jack.
I understand that, but I'm just telling you, if you have a question, ask her a question.
I understand.
She can't answer, don't you think that's a coincidence? That's really not a question. That's really an accusation.
I see.
Like, we got A plus B, so it must be C. She can't answer the A plus B equals C, but she can maybe give you an answer to a question. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I brought her here for, to answer questions, but not to give explanations as to, well, it must be you, and if you can't tell us who it was that killed your husband, then it must be you because of all these coincidences.
Mm-hmm. I understand where you come
She
from.
can't answer that question.
I understand.
So, I believe that her statements are not inconsistent, and I think they're very consistent.
Her lawyer just said something telling. She can't answer the A plus B equals C. That's not a defense. That's an admission wrapped in legal language. Because here's the thing. In 2015, a jury did that math. They added the sleeping pills and the moved gun and the unlocked door and the obituary search and the missing blood spatter. And they got life without parole. Julene is still in prison as of this year. An appeal was denied just 2 months ago. The math held up. Jeremy Simco deserved better than what happened to him that night. His family deserved answers. And the evidence, her own words, her own contradictions, gave them the only closure the law could offer.
Julene, do you recall when you were in the emergency room at Community Hospital, when the emergency room asked you what happened, you saying, I shot my husband?
No, I didn't say that because I didn't shoot my husband.
Okay. You're emphatically saying you never
didn't
made
say
that
that.
statement. Okay. Do you recall telling an acquaintance of yours that Jeremy knows who shot him?
No. I mean, I don't recall, and I don't know who you're talking about if you don't tell me, or the conversation.
It was a friend of yours. You know, they'll come. I'm sure if there's a trial, it'll come out at trial. And if it doesn't, if we find something else, I'm not. I don't want to throw her or him under the bus, and that's why we're being a little vague on that. I can tell you, it's not something we're making up. It's something that we have recorded. Say again.
Who?
I don't know who that is.
Maybe.
Okay. Did you ever? Do you recall ever? It's very simple. Do you recall ever telling anyone that Jeremy knows who shot him?
No.
Do you know if Jeremy knows who shot him?
No.
Okay. All right. Did you recall at the wake telling friends of Jeremy's, I wish I could tell you what really happened?
I don't recall saying that.
Okay. Do you think you made that statement? Okay. I very much thank you for coming in. Do you have any questions of me?
I have a lot of questions. I'm sure they won't be answered, so.
Probably not then, you.
No.
Okay. I very much thank you again for coming in.
And there it is, the moment that gave this video its title, I Shot My Husband. According to hospital staff, she said those words in the emergency room the night Jeremy died. And when confronted with it here, she doesn't hesitate. No, I didn't say that because I didn't shoot my husband. That's not confusion. That's not even denial, really. That's a rehearsed line delivered on cue. But here's what makes this clip land differently than everything else we've watched. It's not just one statement. It's three. Three separate disclosures to three separate people that only make sense if she knew more than she was saying. The ER statement, the comment to an acquaintance that Jeremy knows who shot him, and the whisper at his wake, I wish I could tell you what really happened. She doesn't remember any of them. Convenient. Now look, I want to be fair here. Trauma does affect memory. We've talked about that. But trauma doesn't selectively erase only the statements that sound like confessions while preserving your ability to correct cardinal directions on a floor plan. That's not how the human brain works. That's how a defense strategy works. The investigator tells her they have a recording of the Jeremy knows who shot him comment. Her response? I don't know who that is. Not, I never said that. Not, that's been taken out of context. Just, I don't know who you're talking about. She's not denying the words. She's denying the witness. And the wake comment might be the most haunting of all. Standing in front of Jeremy's friends and family and saying, I wish I could tell you what really happened. What does that even mean if you're innocent? If an intruder killed your husband, you can tell everyone exactly what happened. You heard a noise. You grabbed the gun. Someone was in your house. That's the story. Unless it isn't. The documentary that aired last month brought this case back into the national conversation. And watching it again now, I understand why. Because these aren't just investigative loose ends. These are the fractures in a lie that couldn't hold its own weight. The jury heard all of this. They heard the hospital staff. They heard the acquaintance with the recording. They heard about the wake. And when you stack those statements on top of everything else, the sleeping pills and the moved gun and the unlocked door and the obituary search and the forensically impossible crime scene, the math isn't complicated anymore. Julene Simco is serving life without parole. She will likely die in prison. And I think about what that means for the people who loved Jeremy. His family attended every day of that trial. They sat through testimony about their son and brother and friend being murdered in his own bed by the woman who was supposed to love him. The closure they got wasn't healing. It was just the end of waiting. Jeremy Simco was a person before he became a case file. He had friends who showed up to his wake. He had people who remembered him well enough to notice when something his widow said didn't add up. He mattered to the people around him, and they're the ones who carried this forward when he couldn't speak for himself anymore. That's what stays with me. Not her evasions, not her rehearsed denials, not the investigator's patience or the lawyer's objections, just Jeremy, and the people who made sure his story got told.